Privilege and my honor to introduce this teacher, this lecturer, this author, this mother, and this hero, Nikki Giovanni.
Talk to me, poem. I'm all alone. Nobody understands what I'm saying. Have you been in jail, poem? A lot of poems go to jail, like a lot of women who get tired of no good men. Do no good poems beat up on people? Do no good poems say I'm sorry the next day? I know poems are lost because they're always being found. They're on wanted posters, milk bottles, and lonesome guitars in the night looking for a poem to take home. I know poems get neglected just like doo-wop singing on the back porch and deacons opening church with leaning on the everlasting arms. People forgot what got them over, what saved them. What are your plans, poem? Give it up. I hear you're a rap star now, going for the Grammy and the gold. Everybody's singing your praises. Do you ever miss your home? The sign on I-81 North says shoulders are for emergency only. Ride me, poem. I think I've got the blues.
Poetry is a living entity, which means that it must expand its wings. It must fly. I used to dream militant dreams of taking over America to show these white folks how it should be done. I used to dream radical dreams of blowing everyone away with my perceptive powers. Natural dreams of being a natural woman, doing what a woman does when she is natural. I would have a revolution.
All I know that works in the world is a relationship.
Yes, all right.
Okay, that's all that's going to work. It takes two people to have a relationship.
Yeah, but the relationship.
If you don't have a dream, fake it.
But the relationship, you can't fake a dream.
You got to fake it, because we don't have dreams these days. How the hell can you have a dream? For what?
Well, it isn't.
So everybody's jiving, but let's jive on that level.
If I love you, I can't lie to you.
Of course you can lie to me, and you will. If you love me and you're going off with Maddie someplace, you're lying to me. Because what the hell do I care about the truth? I care if you're there. What Billie Holiday say, hush now, don't explain.
All right, I accept that.
Of course you lie to me, because I don't even want to care. What does the truth matter? And why are you going to be truthful with me when you lie to everybody else? You lied when you smiled at that cracker down the job, right? Lie to me, smile. Treat me the same way you would treat him.
I can't treat you the way I treat him.
You must. Because I've caught the frowns and the anger. He's happy with you. Of course he doesn't know you're unhappy. You grin at him all day long. You come home and I catch hell. Because I love you, I get least of you. I get the very minimum. And I'm saying, fake it with me. Is that too much of the black woman to ask of the black man? For 10 years, so that we can get a child on his feet that says, yeah, father smiled at mother. He talked to me about school today. Who cares that you can read or can't read? Most Americans can't read. Most people can't read.
Welcome to Let It Be Known. Good to be back this morning with the one and only Barrington Salmon. Barrington's been having some technical difficulties, so forgive him if you see some malfunctions going on left and right, but it's always good to have him. We're going to talk in a moment about the late, great Nikki Giovanni. Also this morning, a couple of notes, Jay-Z is taking a stand and still getting backlash, but is nonetheless taking a stand. Also, Luigi Mangione. Mangione. I mean, what a name, first of all. It's like from a comic book, but lots going on there. Barrington, it just seems like folks are not taking that as serious as they should. I mean, they did all this GoFundMe for this guy. They were rooting for him. If he's indeed the killer, we don't know. Also, this morning we're gonna have special guests along with Barrington from the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project to talk about a case or cases from decades ago. You talk about injustice. It's just another another example of the injustices, the many, many, many billions of examples of injustices that Black America has faced. And look, there's somebody else that President Biden needs to be on President Biden's list to pardon. But before we get to Nikki Giovanni Barrington, um, I wanted to just spend a moment on those other two topics. The healthcare CEOs shooting. This is a shooting, Barrington, and a murder that was very interesting. Folks don't even know who this guy is. This CEO, right? For the most
Yeah.
part, we know he's a CEO. Um, Immediately, there was like this was applauded. This action was applauded. We don't know about this guy. I haven't seen much about him, except that he's married with kids.
Yeah. Good morning. Thanks for having me. Um, it's been interesting watching how this has played out, because folks are talking about how surprised they are that so many people on the internet have been applauding the fact that this dude is dead. And it speaks to the anger that people have. They said that United Healthcare, which he was I don't know if he was CEO or some type of he was some type of executive. I think he was the CEO for the health insurance section or something. They said they're perhaps the largest company of its kind in the world, and they had the most denials, 32% of denials of people who should have had care, who had done what was necessary to have care, but they used an algorithm that denied 90% of the people. So it's all about making money. Healthcare is all about making money, and people
And
are
allegedly,
pissed.
this guy had this Giovanni guy had some sort of spine surgery or some sort of surgery, surgical procedure that ruined his life, including including his ability to be intimate. And so there's been a lot of talk about that, and with the CEO and Greer, she's always ahead. But the other thing with him, there was speculation that he staged his own murder, that he even
Yes.
hired somebody to kill him for some reason, or just staged it.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation before Luigi got caught. I think one of the things that is going to be interesting going forward. They said he's from a very prominent Maryland political family, and apparently they are very, very, very wealthy. So usually when you have that amount of money, you can manipulate and skew the system. So I'm curious to see if his family's wealth will help him to escape
Yeah, I just
serving
found
time.
it. Yeah, I just found it very, very interesting, the support that this guy got. But then he goes into a McDonald's, and here's the last thing I'll say about that too. He goes into a McDonald's, and somebody recognizes him there, in Pennsylvania, and he is then apprehended. And now the talk is that, and I don't know who the employee at McDonald's is. There was this huge $50,000 reward,
Yeah.
and now they're saying that because he called 911 and not the tip line, this employee may not be eligible for the reward. It's the most preposterous thing I've ever heard of.
But they always find a way to screw us. That's
Yeah.
what people are upset about. They always find there's always some loophole. I mean, if the person, and I'm not sure that if I was the one that called the cops, that I'd want people to know who I am, because
Right.
people are pissed that they did that, because they look at him as some type of Robin Hood, some type of hero. And what I think is most interesting is that every time we turn around, the government uses violence against us. The government uses violence against anybody that it chooses to suppress. But anytime ordinary people decide to use violence, they talk about how brutish and how barbarous we are. I mean, it's a foolish double standard, and it's one that they use to ensure that people aren't going to come after them with pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, without question. And this whole idea of him being light skinned from the outset, the description that the New York
Really?
Police Department gave of being light skinned, it's just
Maybe they were
Barrington.
hoping that it was a black guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, without question, without question, he's light skinned, all right. How about pink skin? Come on, give me a break. Let me see what. That's the new narrative. Yeah, how about that? Mike V says that not only that, but other healthcare CEOs have taken their photos down off corporate websites and their
Smart.
LinkedIn profiles as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
They should.
Austin's watching this morning.
They should, Stacy. I mean, I've been educated since Brian Thompson got shot about just how predatory the healthcare system is, and
without question.
I mean, so people are justifiably upset. One of the biggest problems that we have is that most people don't have insurance unless they're working. Health insurance is tied to their jobs.
Yeah, and even and unfortunately, they have taken so much away from the Affordable Health Care Act, the premiums, but if you get around the premiums, you have the other part of it. The deductibles are so high.
Yeah.
You know, the co-pays are high. So it's something. Here's something for you real quick though, before we move on though. So this Trump supporting MAGA guy proudly posted on Twitter or X the other day that he is not, because the healthcare system is called Obamacare, he is not.
Yeah.
You know, he removed himself from it. He canceled out his health care. He says, they asked him what did he sign up for instead. He said, the Affordable Care Act.
Oh God.
The same thing, you idiot.
Yeah. But
they hate Obama.
Trump and the idiots around him had better be watching how people are reacting to the killing of Brian Thompson, because he's been running up and down saying that he's going to get rid of Affordable Care Act, and they are Dr. Oz says he's going to get rid of Medicare, so they can do it, and they may have to be ducking and dodging like the healthcare executives to make sure someone doesn't take them out, because people are really, really upset about being exploited. They're frustrated, and our so-called leaders aren't listening. And I'm lest anybody think otherwise, I'm in no way condoning violence, but if they take away people's health care, somebody gonna pay.
And you probably have a point. And I'm with you. As you know, I do not in any way, shape, or form advocate or celebrate violence in any way, shape, or form. But it seems that people are starting to resort. You cage an animal, and what happens? You back an animal into a corner. What happens? They're going to come out. An animal's going to come out fighting. Same with a human. Most humans, you put them in a corner, they're coming out swinging.
Yeah, but the truth of the matter is true too, Stacy, that America has always been a killing field. They murder, the violence, they resorting to guns and violence to settle whatever issue they have. This is baked into America's DNA. So it's not strange, it's not different. That's the way they've been rolling.
I agree.
I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I'm not buying any of this. It's very convenient, very tidy, very wrapped it up in a neat little bow, right? So this man who carried out what was essentially an assassination, and we all saw that shooting on camera. He moved like an expert. This man who completed an assassination in broad daylight on a New York City street and managed to evade police for multiple days, right? Someone who allegedly left a backpack in Central Park full of Monopoly money gets caught up in a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And when he gets caught, they find on him the weapon he used, including the silencer, plus a detailed manifesto about how he hates the healthcare system. I'm not buying it. This is a psyop. Like, I'm not buying this. It doesn't make any sense. And listen, hey, for all I know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this guy's just incredibly inept, but everything leading up to this point would indicate otherwise. So this seems like the perfect fix to a problem the police have thus far been unable to solve. I don't know. What do you guys think?
And then you have this. But nonetheless, Barrington, we will, I'm sure, hear a whole lot more going forward on this guy. But you have this for $1 billion. Trump says you can avoid environmental regulations. He's telling these folks, hey, don't worry about regulations. You want to get permits and approvals expedited. We got you. Just give us some money. $1 billion. The government, the country is truly for sale, Barrington.
Well, you know, this is what the 49.9% of America wanted. Give the people what they want. They what they, you know, I'm gonna say it on out here, but FAFO, F around and find out, and a whole bunch of people are gonna be finding out real soon. You know what they bought. It's interesting because when you have someone who the Supreme said has presidential immunity, he's not even hiding the fact that he's a liar and a crook and a grifter. They said he's selling Trump perfume. He's been selling $100,000 watches,
sneakers, watches,
Bibles, sneakers, pieces of cloth from when he was pieces of cloth from his clothes when he was arraigned, and all that foolishness. So
America has never been less serious. Put it that way. I mean,
yeah.
It's just it is something that I never thought I'd see as far as a being, you know, in those type of positions. Like the politicians are real. They are off the chain, all the way to the White House. It's just unreal what we're seeing. At least they used to pretend to have a modicum of decorum. It used to at least pretend.
Well,
now forget about it.
He doesn't have to pretend. I'm looking at all of these clowns that he's wanting to put in his cabinet, and he what is it? Guilfoyle? What is she? His daughter-in-law?
Yes. Well, no, not anymore. According to the latest, like Lil Don Jr. got him another girlfriend.
Oh, but she's up for ambassador to Greece, and they said that they said he wants to give Lara Trump a position. I guess if Barron was old enough, he'd have a position too.
Absolutely, and yet we complain that Donald Trump pardoned his son. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But real
Biden?
quick,
Biden. You said Donald Trump.
Biden, yes, that Biden pardoned Hunter Biden. Exactly. Thanks for correcting that. We'll talk more about that later. Real quick, Barrington, Jay-Z has come out swinging against these allegations against him as part of an extortion attempt, he says. I mean, his statement was absolutely it was just he said you got the wrong one now, and you just really, I'm going to show you better than I can tell you. And I just thought, and I'm not, you guys know, anybody who watches this show knows, I am not in any way, shape, or form a fan of Jay-Z. However, Jay-Z to me did what, if you are innocent and you're a celebrity, it's, you know, celebrities tend to have their publicists put out just these little tepid statements, if anything. He came out swinging for the fences, and I just thought, wow, this is the way to do it. He talked about his family. you know how, you're not going to do this to my family. And Tony Busby, the attorney, I mean, he called him out. He alleges that Busby has been trying to blackmail him. He said all of that has had the opposite effect on him, and I just think that he did the right thing. People, and he's getting killed for it. I'm like, folks, what happened? Again, we talk about this all the time, Barrington. What happened to the presumption of innocence? People, Jay-Z hasn't been charged with a crime. He hasn't even been questioned by the police. He's not listed as a suspect, and he can't defend himself. People are mad about Jay-Z's statement. He says there he goes. These allegations are so heinous in nature. You have made a terrible judgment and error in judgment, thinking that all celebrities are the same. He also said, Barrington, he said, if you're serious about this, if this accuser is serious about this, file criminal charges. Let's take it to criminal court.
Yeah. The thing that I always keep in mind, and that other people keep in mind as well, is that America is a culture that is they're always very quick to want to tear down people that they also celebrate as heroes. He in my mind, he did the right thing. Let folks know that he is not guilty, because everybody's assuming that he is. Nobody's seen any evidence. Nobody knows what's going on, but just based on the allegation. I hope it goes to court. I hope it's investigated. And if the person is just doing it just to make some money, that they get kicked around like a football. But it's tough because
oftentimes these many celebrities will write a check. And just to make, like, okay,
make it
go away.
No, but
Jay-Z said, I'm not doing it.
With something as serious as that, if you wrote a check, then you'd be basically saying that you did it.
Exactly. That would be the perception.
So he can't do that. And
well, he could have and kept it quiet. He could very well have. Many of them have.
Yeah. And the thing that, one of the things too is that the music business, Hollywood, and you probably know it better than I do, they're cesspools.
It is.
And they are predators who have money and power and influence, who prey on men and women and children. So it's not as if these spaces are crystal clear and clean and all of that. But I hope for his sake that the authorities get to the bottom of this, because that's not something, if you haven't done it, that's not something that you want to be hung around your name and your reputation.
Yeah, and the way, again, the way he forcefully has come out, and then even after that, he has gone to court and said, "Hey, release this individual's name. Let's go for it." He is really going hard about his innocence, and like I said, no fan of his, but I really like the fact that I think it's very, very, it's the right thing to do, particularly, especially if you're innocent. I mean, if you're not innocent, then you shouldn't be going like this. But because I think it sends a message. This stuff has to stop. There are true victims out there, Barrington, true victims of celebrities and other people. Yeah. And when you launch these false allegations, and I don't know, listen, I'm not saying Jay-Z is innocent. I don't know, because I don't know him, don't know his circles or nothing like that. But when you are launching these allegations, if they are false, and there are many false allegations, I mean, there are much more false allegations out there than those that have been proven or could be proven, right? You hurt the real victims. And this is not about, I know that movement, it had to be done. There's Me Too and believe the woman, but they need to check other women who make these. This is like, you had one case, and it was one of the Diddy cases. We know Diddy's he's a creep, but one of his cases imploded because of the fact that the girl, and civil case I'm talking about, not the criminal case, the girl got caught trying to entice an ex-boyfriend, offering him like $2 million to lie for her. You just hurt real victims is all I'm saying. You just do. And so
folks are greedy. Folks are greedy, and they're opportunistic.
I see opportunity.
And if Stacey was a billionaire like Jay-Z, they probably be coming after you too. It's just the nature of the beast.
I got you got my back, so they ain't coming for me.
Yeah. I got my machete under the bed.
The machete. See, that's what I appreciate. I appreciate it. Oh, guys, we're going to get to Nikki Giovanni shortly. But first, we want to talk about something that is it's as important as it gets. We confront the harrowing injustice that has spanned about 40 years. In 1984, 8 young men wrongly accused and convicted for the brutal murder of Catherine Fuller in Washington, D.C., saw their lives ripped apart, Barrington, by a system that failed them. Despite no physical evidence and a clear alternate suspect, they were sentenced to a combined 258 years in prison. 2 of these men have since died, but they still are seeking justice. Now, 6 men, including our guest today, Christopher Turner and Charles Turner, are making a final plea to President Biden for clemency to clear their names once and for all. Good morning to you guys. And I don't see 2 guys, though. I see a guy and a woman.
Good morning.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I'm pretty sure your name is not Charles.
My name is not Charles, although it's Sean, which
No.
is often a man's name. But I am the executive director of the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project and one of the lawyers representing Chris, Charles, and the other 4 living co-defendants in this case.
Well, so now we have a lawyer. Behave yourself, Barrington.
Yes.
There's a lawyer on.
I help you when you well, I help innocent people, but also, we help people who get locked up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. Well, let's jump into it. Charles, am I right, Charles?
Chris.
Oh, Chris, how do you reclaim your life after decades were stolen from you?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear on the say that question again, please.
Sure. I said, how do you reclaim your life after decades were stolen from you?
It's just not an option. I mean, you have to do it. It's either swim or sink, and I chose to swim. I took an injustice and turned it into a positive. I was able to go to school. I was able to get a ton of trades. I was able to do some things to try to impact other people's lives and hopefully inspire other people that they can come from God knows what, because when this case occurred, we were at the bottom of the barrel. The only thing under us was the barrel itself. And nothing had like this had ever attacked the city the way it did. The media friends on this case actually attacked these guys in a manner in which they wanted these guys to not only not have a trial, just go ahead and just outright kill them. Let's just kill them, bring them in the street and kill them. And I had to come back from that. I had to come back from all that noise, and I had to come back and I had to reinvent myself. I stopped letting people perceive me the way they wanted to perceive me, and define myself for myself, and decided that, man, people are going to perceive me the way I am and not what the newspaper said I am.
Absolutely. Throw it to you, Barrington. Barrington, I know you got some questions for sure, for not only for Chris, but for the attorney, but let me throw it over to you.
Yeah, Chris, I was just wondering, I read your story and it made me grieve. And I am just so very sorry that you and the other men went through that. And I wonder, how do you not be angry and stay angry at at the injustice that has been done to you?
The reason why you can't be angry, because if you be angry or bitter, they win. They win if you remain bitter and angry, because you remain mentally locked up still. And so it's not about forgiving and forgetting. It's about moving on. It's about taking injustice and turning it into something positive. I get a chance to do so many things. The best people who have impacted my life, including my attorney, Sean Ambers, they are the best people that I know in the world. And I wouldn't have had a chance to do that had I not went through what I went through, the way I went through it at the time I went through it. I got a chance to do a blog for the Iran hikers with Muhammad Ali. I got a chance to, meet Tupac's mom and sit across Dr. Matula Shakur on a regular basis. And they wanted to hear what I had to say. I got a chance to start an organization while in prison called YDC, Youth Development Committee. And we began to take off and do things. And those things are so impactful in my life that I don't think about what I lost. I just think about all the things I gained and what's still to gain.
Yeah. Attorney Ambrose, we know that that the president, Ambrose, the president recently pardoned his son, which caused a lot of talk and consternation as well. But when you think about pardons, the individuals in this case, I know you guys are fighting for that. Talk about what a presidential pardon would mean for these individuals.
So if you look at this case and you think about these men who are now in their 50s, into their 60s, they have been branded as the most cruel, depraved murderers in DC since 1984. These were kids who weren't bad kids, they weren't getting in trouble, and they were wrongly convicted of killing someone who was known in the neighborhood, and in some cases, they were friends with her kids. So they were just like, they've been labeled the worst for most of their lives at this point, and it's not true. I know for me, when my husband asked me if I touched the thermostat and I didn't, I am like indignant.
Hmm.
That's just a thermostat. I mean, can you imagine walking
Right.
through your life branded as the worst of the worst? The Washington Post columnists called for them to be executed, and they have lived with this stain. And the only person at this point who has the power to do anything about it is President Biden, because they were convicted in DC and don't have the right to go to their own governor.
Isn't that something? Wow.
Mhm.
It's the Innocence Project. You guys have done tremendous work. What keeps you, Attorney Ambrose? What keeps you motivated? What keeps you fighting these causes? I know because we always hear, well, not always, but we hear about cases like this where these men, even if they get pardoned, right? We hear that'll be a great thing, but there are so many that don't end as in what you'd like to how you would like to end it, right? What has that fight been like for you and other attorneys at the Innocence Project?
I mean, I am lucky because I get to work with people like Chris. So, there's this, everybody says that, oh, everybody in prison says they're innocent. That's not true. At every single stage of the process, you are penalized for saying that you're innocent, right? You don't plead guilty, your sentence is longer. If you haven't accepted responsibility, your sentence is longer. You get worse treatment in prison, you don't get paroled. So our clients are the people who have so much integrity that they are not willing to do the thing that, frankly, in a lot of cases makes more sense. They have such incredible courage and fight, and like getting to work with them is just awesome. And also, so that's a privilege. And then, frankly, just seeing what the system does to people and how reluctant the system is to correct its own mistakes. I mean, it can't help but just make you mad
Yeah.
and want to keep
Yeah.
doing something about it.
How do there's so many, like you said, everybody in prison will tell you they're innocent, but there are so many wrongly convicted, particularly as you look at Chris, particularly African-American men and women for that matter. But how do you pick your cases?
So we get about 300 requests per year at the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project, which covers DC, Maryland, and Virginia, from people claiming innocence. And we have a team of people who do our screening and intake work, and they really just dive into every single case because we want to give everybody the chance that they didn't get in the system, like the chance to be heard, the chance to have someone take their claim of innocence seriously. So first, it's just gathering every piece of paper you possibly can, and then kind of whittling it down from there. There are some people who we would love to help because we think maybe they didn't do it, but there's no way to prove it after the fact. And so, eventually we get to those cases where we think the person is innocent, and we also think there may be a way to prove it. So in the case of Chris and his co-defendants, we know who did it, and we know that it was impossible for the crime to have happened the way the government said it did.
Yeah.
This is a longer question. Describe what went through your mind when you realized you were being arrested for something you did not do.
For the longest time, I've been saying I'm innocent.
They were behind bars for 36 years. 36 years for a crime they did not commit.
This is how I felt when the jury said guilty. I'm never coming home. People need to pay attention to what's happening.
I spent 24 years, 8 months, and 22 days in a wrongful conviction. My mom screams over all of the noise in the courtroom. All I just heard was her voice and her screams.
Innocent people go to prison for crimes they did not commit or have anything to do with. Join the movement and fight for criminal justice reform.
Free innocent people.
Yeah, and that's Chris. That's the thing.
It was a nightmare for me in prison.
Yeah, folks don't often think, what if it's their brother? What if it's their child or their dad or uncle? But how, Chris, has this fighting this battle? You're fighting the battle, trying to. You want that presidential pardon. You spent all that time behind bars for something you certainly did not do. How has it kept you going fighting this battle? I think we lost your audio, Chris.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you go.
All right. We adopt the concept that failure is not an option. I signed up for this fight long before it may have ever started. I don't know.
You were really drafted into the fight, right? Because you didn't do anything wrong.
People tell me that I've been that way all my life. Like, man, you always come up with the solutions. You always wanted to buck the system. You always, and I'm like, nah, I just thought I wanted to do what was the right thing. I was always active in my community, and I don't know if I was already in the fight before I ever knew it was going to be a fight. And so we adopt the concept failure is not an option, and we refuse to lose. And this all this transformation took place when I began to read. Prior to reading, I thought my situation was the worst situation in the world and thought no one would understand it or could possibly put themselves in my shoes. And I read a book about some of the atrocities that was going on in South Africa during apartheid with Nelson Mandela and Steve Biko. And I began to wail. I just couldn't stop crying because it was in that moment that I realized, as bad as I thought my situation was, it is not the worst situation in the world. You're not in the top 1,000. So, Chris, you get to make or more your fortunes, meaning that, man, destiny is in your hand. You control your destiny. Either this going to be your monastery or this going to be your modern day Timbuktu. And so I took the high road and I began to read everything that I could get my hands on. I mean, I spent so much time in solitary confinement because I was just so angry, so mad at everyone and everything. I actually didn't care if I lived or died at one point. And then I read these books. And then the more you read, the more you find yourself thirsty for more knowledge. And you get out of that way of thinking, that shoebox mentality, I call it. And you see it's a whole world outside of you. And injustice is not uncommon to people that look like me. I grew up on Capitol Hill. Man, when I tell you I grew up on Capitol Hill, I literally grew up on Capitol Hill. I played in the bushes, hide and go see at the Supreme Court. I rode my skateboard inside the Capitol, not outside. Down the steps, we rode our bike. I swam in all those pools down there, the reflection pool, you name, as a kid. And so to find myself staring injustice in the face, I graduated from high school when I was 17. I had never been arrested for anything. So it was just, man, you just got to strap up your bootlegs. Everyone was against us at this time. In normal cases of wrongful conviction, it's just you there and it's a bunch of guys. But in this particular case, the police wanted to see us dead. The prisoners, the inmates, everybody wanted us dead. They were urinating in our food. They were throwing things in our food. They were doing everything possibly to destroy us. They wanted us gone off the earth. And when you come up from something like that, you realize that you become a light for someone else. That's all they need is a speck of light. The darker the situation is, the least amount of light they need. And I'm hoping that I can be a light to somebody somewhere in some shape, form, or fashion, because we're foolish if we think this 8th and H case, Catherine Fuller's case, the Central Park case are the only cases out there like this. These are the cases that receive mountains of publicity. What are they doing when no one is watching? Those are the questions that have to be asked. What's going on in those trials?
Yeah. Barrington, go
I
ahead.
have a question. I was wondering, Chris, have you ever talked to any of the prosecutors, any of the cops that did this? Have they ever said anything? Have they ever apologized? Anything like that?
Not even close. They won't talk to us. They won't make a statement on the record. They won't participate in nothing related to the case. Because, I guess they probably think lawsuits. They probably think all kinds of other reasons. And then the mere fact of who they are. In my mind, they are worse than actual perpetrators, because you were in a position of power and you misused that power. You colored that power for your own selfish gains. And to me, I just think you're just worse than the actual perpetrator.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. 2 men died, Chris, waiting for justice. How does that weigh on you?
It weighs heavily on me because these were some really good men. They were some really good guys. One of them, initially, Stephen Webb, he died from an aneurysm playing softball. The guy, he never should have even have been on the case. I think he was added on the case like months later. Like, we came in 84. He came in 85 simply because they told him, these guys, and you're going to say they did this, or you're going to be charged with it. And I think Kelvin Smith, known as Hollywood, he was my best friend. He was like my brother to me. He was as close to me as Charles was. In fact, we were actually even closer than me and Charles were. We did everything together. Go-go's, girls, you name it. Fun and all kinds of stuff. We did it. The arcades was big with us then. And so you look at these was lost on the public is that all of us had an opportunity to plead guilty to 6 years. We could have pleaded guilty to 6 years and went on with our life, and nobody would have cared. But these men spent a total of over 255 years in prison, when the 8 of us could have spent less than 6 years in prison because we didn't have no extensive backgrounds. Most of the guys didn't have nothing on their record but some little juvenile stuff they might have did with an assault from a fight and stuff like that. But guys had nothing on their records. So these guys wouldn't even have done 6 years. And they stood on integrity and just said no in the face. And people were faced with cases that wasn't as harsh as this. And they decided to bend, but these men wouldn't bend. And so I give a big shout out to all of them. We're like brothers now. I mean, we wasn't as close as we are today, but after going through what we all went through, we do everything together. We have dinner together. We do game night together. We do couples nights together. We make sure we not only do it for ourselves, but we do it for other men and women coming home. We participate in what's called the Mandela Project. We get a chance to give backpacks with organizations to youth in our community. And when you think about that, you think about the character of these men, and you think about the things that their families had to go through. Those are the things that were lost on us because we were inside. And you're not guilty of something, you don't know how it was affecting others because you knew you wasn't guilty of it. But your family was standing by you under the belief and assumption that you say you're guilty, but they didn't really know. And so you think about all the things they had to go through. You think about Mrs. Fuller and her family and her sons, David and William, that were close to me, and her daughter, and you think about what do they feel? You know, they're sitting there like, you know, because before this case, we didn't believe innocent people went to jail. We grew up watching Perry Mason and Columbo and all the stories, and we thought that the police figured out and they get it right. But that wasn't the case here.
Wow.
And as you see the story right there, the jury had trouble with this case. The jury's deliberated for over 7 days before they reached the verdict to find people guilty. And that was without the facts of the case, without the Brady violations, without the suppressed evidence that was withheld, exculpatory evidence. And to think that it wouldn't have made a difference is ludicrous on anyone who follows the case or just spend 30 minutes with the case.
What would it mean for you, Chris, if the president does finally right this wrong and offer that pardon?
It would be a world of justice served, because not would it validate me, because I don't need no validation, but it would validate the people who gave their blood, sweat, and tears in their services to see this injustice righted. It would give my family back their namesake, and you wouldn't have a stain on your record. Then we may not have to look in our rearview mirror so much when the police get behind us to see they getting ready to pull us over. You know, those things weigh on you because you just don't know. Whenever you get stopped, see, for normal people, a traffic violation is a citation. For us, it's a possible death sentence, because they read all the stuff that was written about you and they have it on their computers in there. And when they approach your car, they approach differently. They don't approach like they would normally approach a regular civilian's vehicle. So it would weigh greatly if the president was able to find it in his consciousness to right this wrong. It would mean the world to us all. But again, if it didn't happen, we would still keep fighting. And then
Well, oh, go ahead.
even
I'm sorry.
after even with the pardon, I still would be fighting because there are other men and women behind me who are relying on me. I believe shine a light on them.
Yeah, and just a couple quick more things. We'll let you guys go. Attorney Ambrose, Chris mentioned something there. I don't know if it resonated at all with the viewers or not, but the Brady violations. Can you? I wanted you to let people know what exactly happened there, and what that is.
Yes. So Brady versus Maryland is a Supreme Court case that says the government before trial is obligated to turn over any evidence that could help the defense. So the legal term is that it's exculpatory. And this is a big deal because in criminal trials, the government has the power to investigate. They have the resources of the government behind them, so they know everything. And the defense comes in later, and depending on the state you're in, depending on where you're convicted, you don't have access as the defendant to what the police and the prosecutors know. And so Brady says, okay, if you guys have stuff that's actually helpful, you've got to give it to the defense to make sure there's a fair trial. In this case, the government did not give the defense some really critical information, a whole lot of it. But the biggest piece is that there was a guy who was seen walking up and down H Street by the street vendor who discovered the victim's body. And when the police came, he also saw that person running from the scene, stuffing something in his coat. The defense knew at trial that that guy existed. They knew that the street vendor had actually identified the guy and the person who was running with him. And they tried to find out who that guy was, but the government would not tell them. As it turns out, that guy was someone named James McMillan, who had been committing robberies of other women, including a DC council member in the area, very brutal, physically violent robberies. He lived on the alley in question, and he went to prison for the robberies. But when he came out in 1992, he wasn't out for 3 months and had beaten to death and anally sodomized a woman in an alley just a couple blocks away from where this crime happened. Now, maybe that type of crime is really common, but I don't think it is. Nobody thinks it is.
Right.
And the idea that this guy was at the scene and nobody told the defense is mind-boggling. And the Supreme Court said it was okay. And the reason they said it was okay is that in order to find a Brady violation, the defendant has to prove that the legal term is that the evidence was material, which means it might have changed the outcome of trial. And the way you're supposed to look at it is what would have happened at the trial. So the Supreme Court was looking at this case as what would have happened in 1985. Now, I still disagree with the Supreme Court's reasoning here because I think this case would have been utterly transformed by this evidence, even without the murder that McMillan committed in 1992. But they said, no, we can't consider what happened in 1992 because the prosecutors didn't know that when they were making their decision. And so, like many things in the criminal legal system, when the system screws up, when the actors in the system screw up, the people who bear the brunt of it are people challenging their convictions. And so that's what happened here.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I have just one more for you, Attorney Ambrose. But let me just defer to Barrington, though. See what he might have.
I was wondering if you could tell us what the process has been for you trying to get clemency from President Biden, and how on the scale of 1 to 10, what's the likelihood in your mind that he will grant clemency?
I don't do predictions because I'm a cautious optimist. That is how I approach all of these things. I assume we're going to lose most of the way, but eventually win. So the process is really opaque. So, again, emphasizing DC prisoners have to go to the president. There have only been 2 people ever who have been pardoned of crimes that were violations of DC laws. So you're talking really long odds, and we are up against thousands of people. The second factor that makes this case really tough is that they are claiming innocence. So the Supreme Court has actually said that, innocence isn't really something the courts are equipped to deal with after the fact, and that's what pardons are for. But the Department of Justice regulations really don't look favorably upon people who claim innocence. President Biden did grant a pardon based on innocence in 2022, but prior to that, as best anyone can tell, the only other innocence pardon, or the most recent innocence pardon, was in the 1980s. So this is a big hurdle. These are not, we're not politically connected. We don't have, it's a violent crime. So it is tough, but I feel like we've had meetings with members of Congress. We are, able to talk to the media about this. I think this is an issue that, where the unfairness of it, I think really does resonate with people. I think, even though I think the pendulum in the criminal justice system has swung back a little bit more toward the tough on crime era, I still think people know that the system makes mistakes, and the people want that to be corrected. And so it's a tall order, but I am optimistic that when people look at this case, they see it for the injustice that it is, and they want it fixed.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's hard to pardon an innocent person. It's just unbelievable. But how can the public help push for this clemency in this case?
So we have a website, 8thandhjustice.org. You can go onto that website and learn lots about the case. And one of the best things you can do, we've got a petition on that website. So you can sign that petition, and you can lend your name and your voice to the group of people who are supporting this pardon, because we're asking the president to do something that is so rarely done. I think it is critical for the Department of Justice and the White House to see that people want this wrong corrected. So the more people we have signing that petition, the more it is clear that this needs to be fixed, and that there's not going to be a backlash the other way if it is fixed.
Well, we certainly hope people will go to that website, sign that petition. Chris, we thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's inspiring to us, and we certainly are hoping for the outcome you deserve. And Attorney Ambrose, thank you so much for coming on as well and joining Let It Be Known News. Thank you both.
Thank
and
you
all the
for
success
having
to
me.
you.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you both. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Nikki Giovanni, the groundbreaking poet, author, and professor whose work embodied the spirit of the Black arts movement and beyond. We got the news that she died in Blacksburg, Virginia. She was 81 years old. Cause of death is believed to have been confirmed as complications from lung cancer. Barrington, there is so much we can say about Nikki Giovanni. She was born in 1943 in Tennessee. She spent her formative years in Cincinnati, but she returned to Knoxville every summer with her sister to visit their grandparents. And those were the visits that she once said, I should say, helped shape her sense of identity and belonging. Barrington, tell us your thoughts and recollections of Nikki Giovanni?
I'm sitting down here thinking about her. Um, I covered Nelson Mandela when he came to the U.S. the first time after he had been released from prison, and Reverend Joseph Lowry said he was a quintessence of African manhood, and I think of Nikki Giovanni as a quintessence of African womanhood. She was a griot. She was a voice. She was unapologetic. She was revolutionary, and she used words. Words were her weapon. Her pen was her weapon. Her mind was her weapon against racism and gender bias and sexism and all of the other isms and all of the other things that we as people, and particularly we as Black and brown people, encounter in this country. I loved her. I was fortunate because Rock Newman called me and said that she was going to be at Bus Boys in 2013, and I got an opportunity to sit in, listen to her.
Oh, I remember that. You wrote about that for the Informant, didn't you?
I did.
Yes.
I did. After she talked to Rock, and she got a proclamation from then Mayor Gray for Nikki Giovanni Day, we got a chance to talk, and I mean, fabulous, just funny and smart, and just devilish. You know, she just didn't care, and was very much unlike, you know, sometimes you meet people and they're real starchy and stiff, and she was never that. And she was a writer, an artist for a generation. And if you've seen social media, people are mourning and recollecting, connecting with her and talking about her impact on them, her impact on the arts, her impact on this country. So just a fabulous, fabulous human being.
Yeah, we know her poetry really tackled injustices, including Emmett Till's murder, the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. And she was she was like you mentioned, her words were her weapon. She was never at a loss for words and how to frame things and put it in its proper perspective, and you couldn't argue with her. She was just, every film I've seen of her, every piece of film I've seen of her, and everything I've read about her. Unlike you, I never met her. So it seemed that this was a person that was always prepared. She was always prepared. If something was coming at her, she was going to be prepared.
Well, yes, and I guess another way to say that would be that she was quick on her feet. She, and I mean, just in conversation, in interviews that I've seen with her, this was someone who was comfortable in her own skin. And as she got older, she got more comfortable. And you know, I saw a quote last night where she was saying that getting old is a wonderful thing. And she was saying that, you know, as you get older, you're supposed to get more relaxed, just more familiar, I guess, with who you are as an older person. You know, you think differently, you reflect differently, you have a different perspective. And she was saying that people needed to embrace that and not go around not being yourself. And you know, as we move south side age wise, that's really, really smart recommendation, smart information.
Yeah, I see RNG writes that she's the only person that he will listen to who use the N word. Her words of wisdom have missed this generation, he says. He says they definitely need to read her books and watch her videos. And you know, he mentioned she used the N word, but it was with a purpose. I hear so many we hear the N word just used for everything, right? I saw a clip of Jamie Foxx's new show, in which he says he talks to God using the N word and referring to God sometimes when he's talking to God as the N word. It's like can't we do better?
Well,
I mean, come on.
I saw that this morning before I went to bed. It was interesting. I kind of shook my head when I saw that because it was a pretty interesting way to use that term and
Right.
all of that. But yeah, and I never felt the way that I feel when other people use the word that whenever I heard Nikki Giovanni use it, because it didn't seem gratuitous.
Correct.
It always had a purpose, and it was always emphasizing or making a point. So I always looked at it differently when I heard her saying it. So
Well, Greer says sometimes it's appropriate.
yeah, it is for sure.
Well, it's like you said, it wasn't gratuitous
Yeah.
when Nikki used it, right? It wasn't, just to say it. It wasn't part of her normal, regular every other word speech. So, but Greer showed a clip of this at the beginning, Barrington, and this is what strikes is a lot of things in this conversation with James Baldwin. It was on the program Soul in 1971, and she talked about keeping it real, and kids today and young people today, people in general today, talk about keeping it real. She said, "What do you?" She said, "What do you do about a man who is mistreated in the world and comes home and brutalizes his wife? Where does that leave his daughter?" Um, and when you think about that, when you break down that sentence, that simple sentence, what do you do? That question, I should say, about a man who's mistreated in the world. And she talked about going to work, getting mistreated. He grins at the boss at work and the people at work, and he comes home and he can't grin at his wife and children. It's a very, very strong question that she asked. Actually, it was two questions, right? Because the second question was, where does that leave his daughter? It brings it home. That cuts to any man's heart when you talk about his daughter.
It's interesting because I have had so many conversations with women that I've been with, friends that I've been with, talking about the fact that we cannot bring home the anger and the bitterness and frustration from out the street into our homes. And it's always been a thing for me to remind folks that I'm with that we need to make our household space quiet and sacred, and no noise, none of the stuff that we're dealing with when we're at work, when we're in other places outside of the home. And I think it's important because what do they say? You usually hurt the ones that are closest to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just always ask folks, or remind folks that I know, to be mindful, to be kinder and gentler to your wife, to your partner, to your children, because they don't deserve your anger and your frustration if you're dealing with a crazy boss or a racist situation, or you're dealing with the assortment of microaggressions that we deal with on a daily basis. We have to make our home spaces safe
Only if
spaces.
I think that we confuse love with sex, basically.
We're hearing the voice of Nikki
Yeah.
Giovanni as we speak. So in closing, Barrington, on Nikki Giovanni, your last. What do you think is going to be when folks look back? What's going to be that Nikki Giovanni moment that many will always will resonate with many?
I don't know. I think the fact that she was at the Virginia Tech for as long as she was as a teacher, as an educator. I think that in my mind is probably going to be her lasting legacy, because she had, she's, and you can extend it further. The students that she dealt with, the people on campus she dealt with, the folks that she touched and talked to when she went to book readings and had speeches and lectures, that to me is her legacy. That's the ripple effect. In Ghana, we say that when somebody dies, you say a mighty, mighty tree has fallen. And she is a mighty, mighty tree. And they also talk about the elders. When the elders die, a library is lost. This elder has died, and we have lost libraries of information. And
it's
I
funny you
guess,
say that. I'm sorry, but it's funny you say that about the library, because again, we're facing a time where they are trying to eliminate anything related to Black history, certainly Black literature. And we know that what you just said to be true. That's a library right there. It's unbelievable.
we're at a point now where a lot of people don't read. And I always keep on hoping and praying that we get back to the way that we used to be. We need to read. We need to turn off the idiot box. We need to put down the phone. We need to converse with each other. We need to read. We need to understand, comprehend. We need to learn critical thinking, because in the war that we now face, with the beast that we now face, knowledge and information and critical thinking is key.
Oh, look, you're right, because that's Nikki. Obviously, Nikki Giovanni. She was well read, and then the gentleman we just had on from the Innocence Project. In his case, what did he say? Picked up that book when he was in prison, and he read and he read and he read, and how that was able to help him through those just most awful years. So reading, they say reading is fundamental. Reading is extremely, it's like water. You got to have it. You should have it.
Yeah, and when you think about the fact that they say that America, on average, Americans have a 6th grade education, whew, and they said like 40% of Americans don't read a book at all. And I saw a story yesterday that was saying that most of the young people coming out of high school have never read a book. You have folks who graduating from college who never read a book, which to me is just astounding. But we have been watching and witnessing the dumbing down of America, the dumbing down of the world. And those of us who care about education and the acquisition of knowledge have to fight against this ignorance and this anti-intellectual garbage that we see thrown around as something that's important, because it's not. Because if we had more intelligent, smart, critically thinking people, that idiot wouldn't be getting ready to become president again.
Well, Barrington, appreciate your insights and your recollections and thoughts on Nikki Giovanni. I do remember extremely well when you went over to Busboys and Poets in 2013. That it just immediately came back to my mind. But thanks for sharing that too. And folks, thanks for coming back. We have been on special assignment, so you've probably missed us the last couple of days. You're going to learn more about that really soon. Obviously, it has everything to do with Michael Jackson. And we got some great stuff on our little hiatus. Our jaunt to Sin City. You'll be hearing a whole lot more about that, and a special program coming up really shortly. We will give you more details tomorrow, the next day, and then we'll treat you to something special. Thanks for watching Let It Be Known. We'll see you again tomorrow.
I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth pains created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a packet of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I am a gazelle. So swift, you can't catch me. For a birthday present when he was 3, I gave my son Hannibal an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My strength flows ever on. My son Noah built Newark, and I stood proudly at the helm as we sailed on a soft summer day. I turned myself into myself. I was born in the Congo.
Quilts. Like a fading piece of cloth, I am a failure. No longer do I cover tables filled with food and laughter. My seams are frayed, my hems falling, my strength no longer able to hold the hot and cold. I wish for those first days when, just woven, I could keep water from seeping through, repel stains with the tightness of my weave, dazzle the sunlight with my reflection. I grow old, though pleased with my memories. The tasks I can no longer complete are balanced by the love of the task gone past. I offer no apology, only this plea. When I am frayed and strained and drizzled at the end, please someone, cut a square and put me in a quilt that I might keep some child warm. And some old person with no one else to talk to will hear my whispers and cuddle near. I'm Nikki Giovanni. The reason I love quilts so much is that I am old, and I do hope that I can warm some old person or delight some young person. Life has changed. My life has changed, and the life around me has changed. I hope I've done a good job, but if I haven't, I hope someone cuts a little corner and says she was here, she tried.